this cover, use a trim tool, take all these push pins off. And then back here where the weather strip is, you can just use the trim tool and pry those up on both sides and grab the panel, slide up and slide it out. Now you want to make sure the engine is cold when you're doing this. You don't want to take the cap off when the engine's hot. We just want to release any pressure in the system. I'll just take the cap off real quick. Make sure there's no pressure in there, and then I can put the cap back on. If you choose to, you can drain the coolant system. There's no drain on the radiator itself. You would have to disconnect the lower hose at the radiator and drain the coolant. But it's not necessary that you have to drain the entire coolant system. I'm going to pull this engine cover off right here. Just pull the oil cap off. Pop this up. You can put the oil cap back on just so nothing falls in there. Just to gain a little more access, I am going to remove some of the components right above here. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could reach down in there and get it, but it's going to make it better for the video. So we're going to use a 10mm socket. Take these two screws out. And I'll remove this screw as well, same 10mm socket. And there is a little attachment here. You want to disconnect that just with a trim tool. And then the coolant hose over here. Just slide that hose off. And this goes underneath. And just slide the whole reservoir up and out of the way. Might be a little coolant coming from that. Set that aside. And this bracket as well, same 10mm socket. And just set that aside. Now the sensor is located down here. We're going to disconnect the connector. There's a little heat shield that is over the top of it. You can just slide that up, then reach down, grab the connector, and disconnect it. There could be a little lock on it. There's this little lock tab that you have to slide that lock tab up and then push down, and then you can disconnect it that way. Now I'm going to use a 19mm socket. We're going to loosen this sensor up. Once you break it free, you should be able to do it by hand. You might want to have a drain bucket underneath the car just because you're going to lose some coolant. And I'm going to do this quick so that I don't lose a lot of coolant. You can see it's already starting to drain a little bit. So I have the other sensor in my hand, and not that much is coming out, which is okay. Put the new sensor in and get that started. All right, now I'm going to have to torque it. Then I'm going to torque that to 16 foot-pounds. All right, that's good. Now take the connector and slide it out of that heat shield. Just line it up. It's locked in place. Now we can put the heat shield over it. Slide that down the wire. And just move the wires if you pulled them out of the way. That's good. Now put this bracket in place. Get the bolts started. Tighten those down. Now put the reservoir in place. Run the hose underneath. And I'm going to hook the hose up first so that the coolant doesn't go everywhere. And then put this retainer in place. And line the reservoir up. There is a little area where that tab on the base of the reservoir goes. Get that lined up. And put the bolts in. And tighten these down. We're going to put this cover back on. Put the oil cap back on. Then at this point, you want to top off the coolant system. Take this coolant cap off. Fill that up with the appropriate coolant and then top off the reservoir as well. You want to run the engine for about 10 minutes and then shut it down, let it cool down, and adjust accordingly. And I'll put this cover on. Line that up top. Put the weather stripping in place. Push that down on both sides. And put all the push pins in and lock them down.